Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, WeissAdvice.com. I'm back. I've been in sessions. I've been sick. I've been working on my studio. Oh my gosh, what a mess. But hey, I'm back, guys. Thanks for sticking with me here while things have been a little bit complicated. So, in this video, I want to talk about reggaeton snares, which might sound like a very specific topic, but I mean, hey, sometimes we cover specific topics. So, I want to do a little bit of thought process first before doing the demonstration here. But anytime that we're working on a record, it's very, very important to understand where the swing of the rhythm is. In a house record, for example, the swing is the feel of pull between each count. So it's the pumping sound that the elements make between the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you have to really emphasize that pump, otherwise that style of music rhythmically doesn't really work. In a lot of hip-hop, the 808 is going to drive the rhythm, and so if we don't have that strong emphasis on the 808, the record will feel flat, it will feel like you can't kind of move to it. So with reggaeton, it's really important to hear that the pulse of the record is actually on the up swings. It's on the eighth notes. So I'm going to play a little bit of this and you'll hear it pretty quickly and I'll point it out. The pulse of it is on that snare, that da-dum dum, da-dum dum. That da-dum is the rhythmic heart of a dembow rhythm. And so it's really important to understand that the weight of the energy needs to go there. Why am I saying that? Because there isn't one specific way to process a snare drum in any genre. You'll Google this kind of stuff, how to mix a rock snare, how to mix a hip-hop snare, and there'll be somebody who's kind of giving you a formula, but it's just a formula that they use for that particular snare. What's important is where the emphasis is, because even if the snare sounds like crud, if it's emphasizing correctly and it's in the groove, the pocket of the groove, it will still work as something that will generate movement, which is the most important thing. So when we're talking about a dembow rhythm, the snare, in my opinion, needs to be a little bit more weighted than the kick. So kind of like old school hip hop, actually. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use Sound Radix Drum Leveler, which is, I'll show you a way to do it without it in a second, as well as a little bit of cleanup EQ here. So let's solo the dembow by itself. So Sound Radix Drum Leveler is kind of like a lazy way of doing complicated automation. You can target very specific drum samples and turn them up. So this is going to target our snare and it's going to turn them up. I'll just exaggerate it real quick before and after. Okay, cool. So, emphasizing that snare, that inside kick is kind of coming up too, but that's okay. I don't mind that. That still works. So, pulling it back down to where we were. And then we're going to open up the sound a little bit, and we're going to articulate the transient, really of the kick and the snare, but primarily of the snare here. So, this is a 2.5 dB boost at around 2.5K. That's where the snap is kind of living. And then it's also opening up just a little bit in the lower mids. So I'll do the before and after, and then I'll go through the thought process of that real quick. You actually hear it on the kick more, I think, but one more time. Maybe I could center on the snap of the snare a little better, actually. I kind of like it where it was. About there. In that range. The low mid is a really tricky thing in a dembowel loop. You have to be really careful because if you're not used to the sound, what you initially might think to remove, like if you're used to mixing rock, for example, what you might think to initially remove, you cannot remove. This is really, really important, and I'm going to show it. You know, this is something that tripped me up the first time I mixed reggaeton, and it will trip you up as well if you're not used to the style. So that tone right there that I'm pulling up, that gives it that almost note to the kick and the snare, you need that. Don't get rid of that. In rock, it's tempting to do something like this. It's not going to fly. There's another spot somewhere around like 400 that's doing something similar. Okay, so this one is a little bit more pronounced, actually. So this is very close to where I ended up removing a very small sliver of tone. So here up around 500 hertz, you also hear a little bit of like ring and resonance. Again, you need that. When in doubt, leave it out. You have to be very, very thoughtful about what you're opening up in the low mids because so much. It's meant to be almost like percussion, not like drums in a lot of ways. So just be very, very careful if you're opening things up. I did end up opening this up a little bit, and the reason is because if you do find that really sweet spot, it actually helps to emphasize the other tones that are around it and kind of focus things a little bit more on the tones and textures of the drums. So I'll pull this up. And then if I want to boost something else in the lows, like maybe around like 290 hertz, which is kind of where that other thing was living, you know, just a little bit around, let's say like right about there, I think it was, and do like a very, very narrow boost. Remember, narrow boosts are not necessarily wrong on drums. Sometimes narrow boosts sound really, really good on drums. So do a narrow boost right there in that sweet spot. And you'll notice it really brings this drum loop to life, actually. I'll give you the before and after. So these two moves in conjunction really help to emphasize the snare and also emphasize the snare, but also the kick. The other thing that I want to do is I've got a snare layer here. It sounds like this. That's more like a kind of like a Latin trap type of snare, but it's emphasizing where those key parts of the rhythm are falling. So I just want to turn that up a little bit. Basically, it's going to feel a little unbalanced. It's going to feel a little snare weighted, but that's okay. That's exactly what I want. So if I take this processing off, we have this. Which rhythmically favors the kick a little bit. It's not that it sounds bad. It sounds good, but I feel like the energy of this loop is on the kick more than it's on the snare. When I bring these in, that puts the emphasis on that da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And that's the part of the rhythm that we're moving to. So when I bring it all into the record together, sounds like this before. After. Typically speaking, I like it when the snare in a reggaeton record is a little bit on the loud side for the record, kind of like an old school hip hop record. And I also like it, not always, but oftentimes, I like it to live in the vertical plane, kind of right between the woofer and the tweeter. This is a little different than, say, something like Afrobeat, where a lot of the times the snare sounds best when it's all the way into the tweeter or mostly into the tweeter. But here it's kind of being shared between the woofer and the tweeter. And I think for a lot of Latin records, particularly anything with like a dembo backbeat, that's where it's going to sit the best. All right, guys, if you dig that video, if you dig this video, hit that like button. If you want to catch more videos like this, hit subscribe with the bell notification. The sale on the Halloween sound design tutorial is officially over. Sorry, guys, but the low-end guide is still available for free until the end of the year, and then after that, it is going to go on sale for $37, so get it while it is free. By the way, if you did get it, and you have thoughts about it, drop that in the comment section below, because I'd love to hear what you think of it, and I think other people would like to hear what you think of it as well. Lastly, you know what we say here at Weiss Advice. We are musicians, sound is our instrument, and I will catch you next time.